It's such a bizarre feeling to be with someone for such a long time and you feel like you know that person so well. Like, I know him so well. But then it just turns into something completely different and you never really quite know why. I think the funniest part is that the story is that I walked out, because that's just not it. Go ahead. I mean, blow the whole thing up. That's one thing. But then don't just act like it was me. It's just like when someone leaves like that and you feel like you knew the person so well. I just don't get it. Like, I don't get how someone can just turn around and walk out after everything. And I don't know.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I hope that everyone is doing well. Today is going to be something a little bit different because I would like to talk about how to regain your confidence after heartbreak or after a breakup. Everything I talk about in my videos or in my podcast, it is always based on my own experience. And so the same does go for this one. This is about a relationship that I was in and then the breakup that followed. And I have never really talked about that chapter of my life on here. I made like one video a couple of months ago on heartbreak, but that was like 1% of the story, if anything. And so today I would like to go into the process of regaining my confidence after everything happened, because I do know that this is something that a lot of people experience. So before we go into that process and the things that I learned, let me give a little bit of a backstory so that this whole thing makes sense. So when I look back at my life, I always kind of like to say that my years from 15 to 21 were kind of like my roller coaster years, just because there is so much that happened. And it wasn't all bad at all. It's more like very high highs and very low lows, and just a lot of experiences and a lot of change pressed into a fairly short amount of time. And yeah, it was just a lot that happened in my life during that time. And I got into the relationship when I was 17, but we were also just really, really close friends for long before that. And so the breakup happened when I was 21. The relationship wasn't perfect. I don't think any relationship is, but we were just really, really close because there was so much time spent together. And it wasn't like both people are at university and then you see each other on the weekends. Like, it wasn't that, because both of us were doing most of our things online. And so while friends around us were in university or at school, we were in very similar positions. And so that gave us a lot of freedom. And so from 17 onwards, really, for me, we traveled together. We lived together for months at a time when we were traveling. When we were home, I would see him almost I would see him, oh God, I would see him almost every day, because he lived like 10 minutes walking distance away from my place. And so, yeah, it was just really, really close and just a lot of time spent together. On top of that, it was just emotionally also really close because, as I said, there was so much that was happening in my life generally irrelevant from the relationship throughout those years. And so that's a very close bond you form when someone sees you go through so much in your life and so many ups and downs in different phases, and you go through so much together and you see the same in the other person. It's a very, it's a very close thing. And so, yeah, it was just a lot of time spent together and just also emotionally really, really close. Well, I can only speak on behalf of how it was for me. For me, it was emotionally really close. Naturally, in such a situation, a breakup would be really painful. And I always kind of knew at the back of my head, if something were to ever happen, it would be painful. But I always thought, because you know the person so well, if something would happen, it would be handled with respect and there would be peace and closure. And so, yeah, that was kind of my my idea of that. And so when everything happened, it was painful for me. But on top of that, it just kind of turned into, I don't even know how to word it. Like it just turned into something that I never expected to happen. I went through hell for like 18 months, and it was just a really horrible and really, really painful situation for me. And it's really complicated. And of course, I see my part in it, and I was not perfect. I would never say that I was. But nonetheless, I just got really, really hurt in this one in a way that I never expected to happen. It was a really, really hard time in my life because I was just in so much pain. Like I was just so sad. And it went on for such a long time. Like I was a wreck. It literally felt like someone took a bomb and put it inside my body and then let it explode. I was completely, like I felt like I just lost my mind. And yeah, I was definitely a wreck for much longer than I would like to admit. It was really a shit situation. But I think one of the biggest things that happened is that I just lost complete confidence in myself and in my ability to make decisions and in my ability to evaluate people and their intentions. I lost complete trust in myself. When you date someone for a couple of weeks and then it turns into something really ugly, you can kind of go back and tell yourself, well, I might have to reevaluate my decisions based on who I date and how I go into these kind of situations. But when you build a whole life with someone and it starts with such a strong friendship and then it goes into a relationship, and then that whole life that you built with that person just gets set on fire, you don't really question one or two decisions you made. You question every single decision you have ever made in that situation. And that doesn't just mean that I can't trust myself in one or two areas of my life, but that means I just cannot trust myself in general. And that idea started to solidify in my mind, this idea that I cannot trust myself. It got so strong without me even really realizing it until my trust in myself was literally non-existent. It felt impossible for me to make a single choice in my life without asking another person outside of me what they thought of me making that choice. And so let's say someone was asking me where I wanted to go for dinner that evening, I could not make that choice because I thought, what if something goes wrong? Like, then that's on me. Or like literally everything, I could not move. I felt like I couldn't decide on what to buy or what not to buy, where to go, who to spend time with. I felt like I couldn't even transfer money. I couldn't even upload a video. I felt like I couldn't move. I could not make a single choice in my life without asking someone, please, can you tell me, is this a good idea or not, because I don't think I'm a good person to decide. It was random smaller choices in my life. It was bigger choices. It was everything. This wasn't like, oh, I felt like this for 2 weeks and then it stopped. Like, no, this was a really, really long time where I felt like this, and it was months and months and months where it just wouldn't stop. And it took me a really long time to regain my confidence from that. And so I cannot be the person sitting here today telling you that it was easy, because it was not easy for me. It was a really, really difficult process, and it took me a long time and a lot of help. But I can be the person who can tell you that it is possible, because I did manage. I'm very happy to say that I sit here today truly as the most confident and most strongest version of myself that I've ever been. And so yeah, today I would like to go a little bit more into the process of how I managed to regain my confidence after feeling like that. So the first thing that I would like to throw into this conversation is don't take on all of it. I was, interestingly, never really very angry at him, not because I didn't have reason to, but because I was so angry at myself. Like I was furious at myself. I didn't even really have energy to be angry at anyone else, because I just thought like, how could I have allowed this to happen? And I really thought I have disappointed myself in a way where I can never forgive myself again. And in that process, I started to pick myself apart, thinking, what is wrong with me in a way that I have never experienced before? Well, first of all, during the chaos, when I started to see the change of behavior of how that person was being with me, and I never really understood what was going on or why, my mind started to think, what in me is lacking that this person used to feel, that this person used to be interested in me and they are no longer interested in me. And so my mind started to kind of try and understand that. And so I was like, okay, maybe I'm too, like, I just started to come up with all kinds of ideas. Maybe I'm too emotional. Maybe I'm too this. Maybe I'm too, everything. Maybe I'm too forward. Maybe I know what I want too much. Maybe I need to turn that down. Maybe I'm too smart. Maybe I'm too dumb. Maybe I'm not interested in the same things he wants me to be. Literally, my mind came up with every single thing of why this person might be different to me. And so in that process, that already started. But then by the end of it, my mind was like, what with me is wrong that I could not see that? And so it was just a very long period of time where I just started to take on all of it. And I started to think it all must be my fault and there must be something wrong with me as to why this is happening, even though it was not all my fault. And so for months and months, now looking back, I was kind of like a chameleon, continuously shape-shifting, trying to fit into something that I thought was missing. Maybe if I behave like this, maybe if I dress like this, maybe if I speak like this, maybe that will change how he is responding to me. And after everything that happened, I thought maybe if I become more protective, maybe if I analyze people more, maybe if I read this book, maybe if I educate myself on this knowledge, maybe then I can make sure that something like this will never happen again. But I realized every single thing I tried, none of it changed how he was responding to me, and none of it changed how my life looked like and what it felt like. And so after literally trying every single thing that you can try and it not changing anything, the only possible logical answer in my head was, maybe it's not me. That wasn't even the thought that I thought was real. It was just the only option that was left because I had crossed off everything else. I thought, maybe, just maybe, it's actually not me. The biggest thing I learned in this is that in such a situation, there are two people involved. And so just because you don't know the other side doesn't mean you can take on all of it. You can't, because there are two people involved. You cannot control another person. The other thing that I learned is that people's behavior and how they respond to us and how they treat us, it often doesn't really have much to do with how much that person loves you, but how much they love themselves. Because if someone really is happy with themselves and someone loves themselves, then whatever that person wants to do, whether that be they want to break up, they want to leave, they want to stay, they want to, whatever it is, that was never the issue for me. But whatever it is, it will be done in a way that includes the well-being of the other person. Because when you love yourself, then you want to radiate that to the people in your life, and you want to not create more pain and chaos. You just don't want to do that. And so I realized that this really doesn't mean that I was not enough or that there was something wrong with me. This just means something about the other person if they are communicating to me in this way. So for me, the first part was to not take on all of it, because that was not it. It was basically killing me. And so I had to stop doing that. But then eventually I did have to sit with my part, because in a situation like this, you cannot take on all of the blame, but you can't give all of it back to the other person. That's not really gonna work. And so for me, metaphorically, being in that relationship, it kind of felt like for years I was in this garden and I was planting flowers, and I would come and I would water it and I would pour a lot of love into it. And I was just always very present there, trying to make it a beautiful garden. And that garden was our relationship. And sometimes he was there, sometimes he wasn't. But nonetheless, there was this garden that I poured a lot of myself into. And suddenly I stood there and that garden had just been set on fire. And so I thought, now what do? I have this garden that meant so much to me and now it's on fire. The other person has already left. What do I do now? Do I also just walk out and act like it never even happened? But then I will never be able to make peace with it. And so I decided I'm going to go back and I'm going to take out every single lesson I can from this fire and from this garden, because then at least I can stand there someday and I can say, this garden and this fire made me who I am today. But if I just let this go, then I will never be able to make peace with it and I will never understand what that was. And so I just sat there for months and months and months. I just sat in it and I was like, I'm going to figure this out. It is the last thing I do with my life. And it wasn't even like a conscious, well, it was a conscious choice to do that. But at the same time, I felt like I didn't really have a choice, because just walking out and acting like it didn't happen, I couldn't do that. Like I kept feeling like I'm haunted by it. And so I had to go back and I had to sit with it. And I also made that conscious decision. And so, yeah, for months and months, I just tried to figure it out. And it was really one of the most painful things I've ever had to do. It would have been very easy to just walk out and act like it never happened. It was so painful to continuously go back there and try and understand what happened. And it took me a lot of support from the outside, because I think if you do it by yourself, you just kind of feel like you're going crazy. And so it was like hours and hours and hours of therapy and meditation and journaling and just being in nature and just being by myself, trying to understand what that was. My confidence went away when I thought that, first of all, I'm the most stupid person to ever walk this planet, because I can't believe that I let this happen. But my confidence also went away when I thought that I've just wasted years of my life. But when I went back there and I turned it into a catalyst that pushed me into the clearest and strongest and most amazing version of myself that I've ever been, if I do say so myself, because I know where I've been, then I was able to sit there and say, this has made me who I am, and that's where I find my confidence. I was like, excuse me, this was my garden, and I know how beautiful my garden was, and I know how much I poured into it, and it was unfair that another person set it on fire. The person could have just walked out, but there's no need to set it on fire and then let me watch it be set on fire by myself. Like, it was all unfair and I was never warned that it was going to happen and blah, 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 blah. But at the same time, I was like, I know my garden and I know how beautiful that garden was. And I don't care if right now it looks like it's just a rotten garden that's been burnt down and the other person has already left because they just see it as a burnt garden. I know my garden and I know what I put in there. So I'm going to go back in there. Doesn't matter if it takes a long time. Doesn't matter if I got burnt, but I'm going to go there and I'm going to take out those seeds from that garden and those are going to be mine. Because the other options, even though they were easier, they didn't really leave me with much confidence or power, because my options were very limited. Either I just walk out and I act like it never happened, or I start planting another garden with another person using what that person already has. But if I go back and I take out those seeds from that garden, then these are mine. And now I can decide I want to build another garden with another person, or I want to build another garden just for myself. But I refuse to let this traumatize me in a way that I feel like I can never build another garden in my life, because I refuse to give another person that much power over me and over what I know I can do. The last thing that I wanted to add to this conversation is, well, there are a lot of things that I could add to this. There's so many things that I can think of. Maybe we can do another part for this one. But for today, I just wanted to say, I really think the outcome of a situation does not determine whether you took the right choice or not. I remember I had a conversation once with my mom, and I was asking her what she thinks of me going on this trip or not. And this was a trip that I was going to go on. Well, if I would go, I would go by myself. And I just could not decide if I should go or not. Do you think I should go? Should I not go? Is this a good idea? Is this not a good idea? Because I just thought, what if I go and then something happens? Then that's going to be on me. But if I don't go, then maybe I'm missing out on an experience. And then that's also going to be on me. And I was like, I need someone else to make this choice for me. I cannot do it. I remember my mom looked at me and she was like, you know, you need to stop this. Like, you cannot be asking everyone about this trip. Like, nobody can hear it anymore. Just stop. She was like, just listen to your intuition and your gut and make a decision based on that. And she said it so casually, but I remember I looked at her and I was like, I can't do that. Like, I can't do that. And she was like, why? And I said, well, my intuition took me into a situation that was so hard, I almost died. Well, it felt like I almost died. And so I said, I can never listen to my intuition again. Like, I can't ever do that. And so please, can you just tell me, well, I was like, what if I make a choice and then you just tell me what you think of that choice? Like, I was trying every single way. And she was like, just listen to your intuition. And I said, I can't. And I remember she looked at me and she said, Adina, I know that you are in pain from choices that you've taken in your life and things that have happened, but look at who you have become through all of it. Something about how she said it and when she said it, it just clicked in my head. Like, it was just this light bulb, because I looked at myself and I was like, yeah, this is a shit show and I feel like I'm dying, but I'm really so proud of the place that I'm in now. I cannot believe that I made it this far, because at this point I was struggling, but I had made incredible progress. And so I was like, wow, I can't believe that I managed this. Sometimes we don't know why things happen in life. Maybe I will know in 5 years, maybe I will never know. It doesn't even really matter, but I think you can't go and look at something and say it ended this way, that means all of my choices were wrong, because we don't always know why things are supposed to happen and why they happen the way they do. Maybe I was supposed to be in this situation and it was never supposed to work out. Or maybe it was supposed to work out, but it was the choices of the other person that fucked it up. Or maybe I was never supposed to be in it in the first place and I was not listening to my intuition when I got into it. Like, you don't really know. There are so many different options as to why something can happen the way it did, but I don't really think we can measure if something ended positively and that means then it was the right choice or not, because sometimes the things that don't end up being positive can also be very valuable. Like, it's not that black and white. I went into the relationship following what I believe in, which is happiness, joy, and love. And I saw a huge potential to experience that with him. And so I went for it. And for a really long time, it worked. And we had this beautiful thing that we built, and we were like a team, and it was amazing. And I would never deny that it wasn't that, but then at some point it didn't work anymore. And so that's okay. You know, that's literally all it is. It's just that. It doesn't mean that all of my choices were wrong, because all you can really do in life is just trust yourself, and you never really know what's going to come from it. Maybe you fall on your face, maybe you get hurt, maybe you have success in it. Like, it doesn't really matter. That's just life, because we evolve and we grow and we learn, and sometimes things happen the way we thought they would, sometimes they don't. It's just all life, and I think we just have to, well, I just had to make peace with that.
It was hard, and I would never say that it wasn't, because it was, and I know that, but I know who I am now, and knowing who I am doesn't come from anything external. It's just this internal thing that I've been working on, and I think I didn't know that before. That's why I let it get to where it went, but knowing that now, I'm okay. I really can't believe I'm saying that and meaning it, but I'm just going to continue to move forward with the steps that bring me joy and happiness, and I know that the rest will follow, but I'm good. Like, I'm really